I get feedback almost every day on our podcast.
I've never gotten any feedback.
I've never gotten any feedback.
I get so much feedback.
From who?
From almost everybody in my network, including people that like I don't talk to on a regular basis. Like I haven't talked to since undergrad. Like, hey, listen to your podcast. I don't think you're right about this stuff. I'm like, my mom was like, I don't like it when you say the word asshole. And I was like, well, it was in the context of everybody cusses.
They're coming at you hard.
My dad gave me a whole hour-long lecture on how I shouldn't say I'm a bad project manager. I was like, but Dad, I am a bad project manager.
Why? You said you were a bad project manager?
I said I'm bad at project management.
In one of the podcasts?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I am bad at project management. Are we recording?
Yeah.
Oh, hello.
Well, so here's my thing. I feel like you saying you're a bad project manager isn't saying that you're being self-aware. Like, how can that ever be a negative thing?
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
It was, somebody's not going to want to hire you because they're going to want somebody to really strong to manage the project.
You're a team. This is
Right.
what... It's been a theme in my life recently. It's the same conversation over and over again. It's like, you're good at 2 or 3 things you're so good at. So hone in on that and stop trying to like sell yourself as the entire world, because you're not. That's why you have a team.
Absolutely.
I am like on fire about that recently, and I don't know why I just got so passionate about it again.
Well, I had a conversation last week with somebody about my Colby score. And I said that I was high upstart and low follow through, which I'm pretty sure everybody in their right mind knows. Like, I am not detail oriented. I'm not a perfectionist. And somebody was like, well, I don't know if I want to work with you because you have low follow through. So can you follow through on a project? And I was like, yes, because my team follows through on the project.
Yeah.
Like, if I were a solo operation, the answer would be no. But if I were a solo operation, we have a lot larger problems to deal with.
Yeah, for real.
Agreed. I am not a great follow-through person.
So I'm not either. I've had to force myself, and I wonder if that's a trait of, I mean, it's pretty interesting that all 3 of us are really bad at that.
I have a tendency to believe that entrepreneurs are that way.
Yeah, me too.
And it's because entrepreneurs are more visionary than they are executing. I mean, we execute, obviously, because we've got to get the business started.
Right.
But a really good entrepreneur is going to hire people to do the things that they do lousy. And in my case, it's the details.
Yeah, agreed. I'm the worst person in the world when it comes to, like, I'll be sitting every single day. I come up with a brand new business idea, and I'm like, wait, this could work. I have just invented something new. This is what needs to happen. And I'm just ready to, like, start a new business every single day.
Yeah.
It's the worst thing in the world. It's awful.
Yeah. I have to force myself to focus.
Yeah.
Stay focused on the project I'm working on.
I don't know. There's something going on with me over the last like week and a half. I'm like being very passionate about everything that I'm saying and very aggressive. I don't know what it is. I think I no longer have a tolerance for I don't know. I was talking to Evan on the phone yesterday, and he was like, "Man, you just like are no nonsense right now." I don't know what it is, because I feel like I've always been super like, okay. And now recently I'm just like, no. That is not how things operate. I don't know what's going on with me.
You're getting intense.
I am getting intense. That was the word you used.
Yeah, you're getting focused now.
Yeah.
Which is good because, like, then you can really focus.
Yeah. I think I used to just be very much. I'm also understanding what my strengths are, and I'm no longer taking on stuff that I can only do, like, 60% well or 30% well. I'm saying I'm finally being like, no. Like, if you want that done, we're going to need to find someone else, because that's just such a relief to me to be able to say that. And also, like, you're going to get better work. And isn't that what everyone wants? And it's going to save me 15 hours of trying to do something that takes somebody else an hour.
Yeah, and it's more pleasurable to do the stuff that you're good at. Not that I think you don't ever challenge yourself to expand by doing some things you're not great at. But especially when you have limited amount of time and you're focused on a project, it's like, what is the best way to utilize your time? That's a question I'm always asking myself.
Have you read The 4 Hour Workweek?
I have,
I'm in it right now.
I have to say, however, I just don't believe that exists. Not for the truly successful entrepreneur.
So I'm currently reading the book, and I agree. Like, I agree with that. And I'm reading it in the sense of, hey, offload the stuff you're not good at and give yourself time to rest is like kind of how I'm taking it right now. But I'm only like halfway through. If that did exist, man, sign me up. Goodness.
This may be a self-judgment, but I am very much about my work. Like I eat, drink, breathe the work that I do.
Yeah.
And what would I do the rest of the week if I was only doing my work for 4 hours?
I can think of a lot of stuff I'd do. And I love working, and I can think of so many things. I'd just be at the beach. That's really the main thing that comes to mind. I'd probably drink margaritas earlier in the day, not wait till, like 7. Start around like 1. Yeah, right, Evan? Yeah, start at like 1, 2, Really, we could come up with a game plan for you if you'd like.
I quit one job in 2009. I left my work that I'd done for 20 years, basically, and had 3 years where I was, quote, retired. I was bored out of my mind. I mean, it was really fun for about a year.
Right.
And then I just got stir crazy. I needed purpose. I needed focus. I needed structure in my life. It didn't work. I mean, I was working out all the time. I was in really good shape.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of movies. I read a lot of books.
That's so funny.
But I also felt like I was floating a little bit. Like I needed more structure.
That makes sense. I guess as I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, if I only worked 4 hours a week, I'm not taking into account the fact that I would still be doing my blog and all that kind of stuff, and that would never be 4 hours a week. But that's because I forget that it's work sometimes,
That's an important thing to note, too, is that if you love what you're doing, it's not, quote, work.
Completely.
It's just kind of a lifestyle.
Oh, yeah.
And I've heard people criticize this idea of living a lifestyle, but I don't know, it works for me.
That's what I liked about the one thing that he said in the book was the whole concept around the 4-hour work week is so that you're not busting your ass for like years upon years waiting for retirement. And it is about creating that kind of lifestyle where he's like, oh yeah, I'll just take like a month or 3 months off. It's fine. Hey, same. I'll be there. I'll be there right there with you, man.
And actually, now that you're talking about that, Carl and I do take a month off at a time. But the interesting thing about it is even when we're off for a month, we're still working.
Right.
I mean, we may not be physically in the office.
Yeah.
But with technology now, I'm still checking in, still talking to people that are on my team. Yeah.
One of the things that I've noticed is as I start to focus only what I do during the day on what I'm really good at, everything else really doesn't feel like work. And so I don't mind doing it for 50 hours a week or 60 hours a week because it goes by really quickly. And then the time that I take off also feels like free time. And so they both feel like free time because I'm either doing what I really love to do and creating value for my businesses, or I'm doing what I really love to do and creating value in my personal life. And so it never really feels like a grind, or it feels like, oh my gosh, now I have to do whatever, because I enjoy every minute of it. I mean, I think that's different too than somebody who says, I really love what I do, but I feel like if I'm not working, then I'm losing.
Yeah.
I think that's different. There's something going on there where you're overcompensating, or there's something going on deep in your mind where you're nervous about something, and so you have to feel like you're always on. Whereas I think now when I focus on only what I'm uniquely good at, and only what I really love, and those two things are the same, none of it ever feels like work.
No, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that's why there's certain aspects. When we were talking, you were like, I wish that there was times where I could tell you just to close your computer and stop working. But it's hard when you do care about what you're doing and when it is fun. That might be why I'm getting intense in other aspects where I'm like, I hate all of this and I don't want to touch it. Like, get away from me.
You're getting more discriminating about what you do and how you spend your
am.
time.
Yeah. I've also become very, very protective over like the type of people I will deal with or I'll have interaction with. And that's a very new, that started happening around like 3 or 4 months ago. I'm a new person over here, apparently. I've had a lot of stuff going on. But that's been like a recent, like probably 3 or 4, maybe 5 months thing where I don't have time. I don't have time to play.
Agreed.
Yeah.
As I've evolved emotionally and spiritually, I find that certain people fall out of my life. And it's not dramatic.
No.
I mean, it's just like, it just no longer works to meet them for coffee or for a drink, and they just kind of fall away.
Completely.
And they're clearly okay with falling away as well because they're not following up.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's not a one-sided I'm firing you situation. It's a two-way I just don't think this is going to work anymore, and everybody kind of leaves amicably.
I've also noticed that the more I have become like super protective over like the stuff I'm listening to, the stuff I'm watching, what I'm reading, and who I'm interacting with, my like everything else that's happening in my life is just growing and becoming so much better. And I go back to like what my mom used to tell me in high school and college, you know, the 3 or 5 people that you're the closest with is exactly like how your life is going to be, or, you know, that saying. And I would roll my eyes and I'd be like, yeah, okay, Mom. It's so true.
It is true.
It is so true.
All right, parents can be wise.
Right? Y'all know what you're talking about.
We don't admit it when we're young.
Right.
It's very true. The people that you hang out with, do you want them to challenge you in good ways, or do you want them to hold you back?
No, completely.
The things that you read. I have a friend who was telling me a story about an acquaintance that she hangs out with, and she said this woman is just, her life is all together, and yet she's angry all the time. And then one day she was driving with her, and she heard the music that she was listening to on the radio, which was really angry, headbanger kind of music. And she said to her, "No wonder you're so angry. Listen to the music. You know, that's affecting you.
Yeah.
That vibration in your body is affecting you." And the woman didn't quite get it. But everything has an effect on you. What you read, what you listen to, the people you hang out with, how you spend your time.
I also think, too, because I'm on this, you know, journey of self-growth or whatever you want to call it over here, I really feel like you have to get to a point where you are wanting something different, too. Like, you have to, when I was in my corporate job, I, like, loved everything about it for the first year, and then I did not want that anymore, and I had to, like, but I had to get to that point. And when I was hanging around people who weren't gonna like get me to where I am today, I still like there has to be something inside of you that changes, or you will just keep going through those cycles over and over again too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that for sure with any individual, as a friend or as a family member or even as a peer, you can't offer things to people and expect that they're going to change. People have to kind of walk into it themselves and be ready and ask you for questions, or, you know, ask you questions or ask for advice, or want to know, you know, hey, what drugs are you taking, or how is it that you're so happy? You know, when they come to you and they ask you what's happening in your life, I want a little bit of what you've got, then they're ready. But for you to offer it to them unsolicited never works.
There's no brute force method.
No.
That's what we were talking. So Monday through Friday, I'm doing daily Instagram lives, and with my old babysitter who lives in New Jersey, and that's what we were talking about last night was completely lost my train of thought.
You were talking about last night with your babysitter.
Oh, we were talking about influence and how when it's done in a mindful and like self-aware way, how powerful it is. And but we also brought up how you're never gonna like, no matter how amazing of like a salesperson you are, if that other person isn't ready to accept what you're saying, it's gonna mean nothing. It's gonna go nowhere. And I think that's why I sometimes have such a hard time with like, listen to this podcast and it'll give you 5 tips to go land your first $10,000 deal today. And it's like, no. It's all about mindset and where you're at.
Yeah, and I have a hard time when people come to me for advice about a third person. Hey, I'm experiencing this with a family member or a friend. What should I do? And so often my advice is something like you just have to watch it unfold. Because like you're not going to be able to like force them to change whatever their action is or whatever their mindset is. It's a very difficult conversation to explain to somebody who hasn't quite understood that there is no like forceful method and there is no sales pitch that'll get people to change. How to watch whatever action or thing is currently going on that you don't like and still accept them for who they are and love them for who they are.
That's a key.
Yeah.
You lead by example. You know, you live a life that somebody else is going to want to emulate. And then when somebody's ready to emulate, then they will. And that's, I think, oftentimes how you begin is by copying somebody else who's doing it right.
Right, yeah.
And then you learn your own way. But it seems like it's a good beginning. Leading by example. And I also, if somebody comes to me about somebody else, my first response is, you might want to talk to them about this instead of talking to me about this.
Yeah. Or like, maybe you should look at yourself too.
Exactly.
Why is this bothering you so bad? Or
Look
you
in the
you
mirror.
Like, look at yourself first. But then that's a whole nother conversation.
I had a woman approach me recently. We just happened to be sitting in the same space in an intimate kind of an environment, and she started sharing with me about her family life and some challenges she's facing, and I gently instructed her to kind of look in the mirror, you know, that the things that are challenging you are almost always related to your expectations and who you're being. And later on she came back and she said, wow, I've never had anybody tell me that. She said that was really powerful. And then she said, you know what, you should charge for these fireside chats.
You're like, you're right, I should.
She said, you should start charging for these fireside chats. I thought that was cute.
That's so funny.
But that's so true. You know, looking in the mirror. If you're really challenged with something, you know, what are your expectations? Everybody has their own life that they live, and they're not living it for you. You know, they're living it for themselves. So step back and look at yourself and live your own life the way you want to live it. Let other people live their lives the way they want to live it.
Yes, one of the things that I'm coming across right now are people who, and maybe I'm just sensitized to it somewhere, but a lot of like, I'm a very selfless person. I'm always a giving person. And I have a hard time explaining, and maybe like we can help find the right verbiage. Like nobody is completely selfless. Like even if you consider yourself to be a selfless person, you consider yourself to be like somebody whose primary life mission is to make everybody else's life better. Like you're still doing it for some sort of a selfish reason because it makes you feel good.
Exactly.
Right. And so it's difficult, I think, for some people. They think, oh, I'm a selfless person. I do everything to make my friends, my family, my loved ones feel good. But deep down, where is that really coming from? And why aren't you still acting in the way that makes you feel the most happy? Like you can make other people feel good and you feel the most happy at the same time. And so why sacrifice one or the other?
I think it comes from the old belief that you suffer in the giving. Like when you're giving to other people, you should be suffering or you're not really giving anything of real value. And I just I totally disagree with that. I think if you're suffering through giving, then what you're transferring to other people is that suffering. But if you're feeling joy and empowerment and, happiness in the giving, then that's what they're receiving. So, yeah, I take...
And it's wonderful for people to feel joy and happiness in the giving. Like, what a deep-rooted sense of purpose.
Right.
Why try to suppress that because you must suffer while other people gain?
Because people don't like seeing other people doing nice things that make them happy. That goes back to the conversation we were talking about working out.
Oh, yeah.
I'm telling you, we're diving into some psychology over here. Something. But it is true. Like, I think it's, I don't know, like if you're going and you're volunteering or you're doing something like that and it's a genuine, I can like say, okay, you are genuinely happy and all this kind of stuff and you're doing really great stuff, and I'm somebody who's sitting on the couch and I'm just going to look at that and be angry if I'm like wanting to do that or something. I think it's all jealousy too, which is so petty. Like, you can go volunteer. You can go work out.
Yeah, nonprofits survive because people feel good when they volunteer.
Right.
Otherwise, there's no incentive for people to go volunteer.
Yeah.
Or to donate.
Yeah. I feel like he's having a moment. He's like, I know it. I'm right.
Well, it is an expectation that society puts on us, right? That if we're having fun, that there's something wrong. If you're having fun in the giving, then you're not truly giving.
And if you're having fun at work, then you're not truly working.
Exactly. It's like there's something about there should be this suffering that exists throughout life. And there is suffering. Many masters say that suffering comes from wishing for things to be other than they are.
Yes.
So if you're just in life and you're cool with the way your life is progressing, bad or good, then you're not suffering through it. You may be feeling physical pain, but there's a difference between physical pain and suffering. Suffering is that mental resistance to what's happening.
Yes. Yes. Happiness equals reality minus expectations.
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard that before. That's a good one.
Yeah, I like that.
I don't know where I got that. Wait, but why? I didn't come up with it.
Sorry, can't be laughing over here.
That's okay. I'll cut that piece out.
Perfect. I coughed up a lung.
Women particularly, I think, feel that they should be suffering for others.
Yes. Why is that?
My own personal, this may create real conflicts to the people who are listening to this podcast. My own personal belief is that it goes right back to the Bible, Adam and Eve.
Interesting.
I mean, women are responsible for, eating the apple.
Right. So
original sin. We are responsible.
Right. And I'm just like, you were an idiot. You ate it too. You listened.
So we're spending our whole lives and generation after generation after generation atoning for that original sin that women committed. Hi, I'm Annamarie Ferniak, a mindfulness teacher, entrepreneur, and urban revitalizer. In 2019, I published my first meditation with Insight Timer. To listen to these meditations, please download the Insight Timer app from your app store. Thank you so much for listening.
So this is interesting that you brought that up, because I would say like 6 months ago, we keep going back to 6 months ago, this is when my life drastically shifted.
Well, you got married.
Right. Oh my word. You're so right.
Yeah.
This is weird.
That is a major shift.
That is a
life.
major shift.
Yes.
Interesting. Yes. So I got married. But 6 months ago is when I realized that I had been, up until that point, like, I would talk to my mom on the phone and she'd be like, how are you? I'd be like, well, like, and I'm a very positive person, but for some reason there was something that, like, I felt like if something had to get done, I had to do it. It didn't matter what it was. If it was like picking up his laundry from the cleaners or something, I was like, no, it's fine. Like, I will do this. And I'm like, why am I putting all of this on me so that I'm running around 100 miles per hour? And it was like a weird guilt. Like, I felt like I had to do these things. I don't know. And then I finally was just, no, I'm not. I'm not going to live my life feeling like I have to suffer. I don't know.
Right.
It's weird. That wasn't really an actual complete thought. I just, I'm having some revelations in my mind, I think.
Well, it is interesting because I don't know where I heard this recently about the roles in marriage and how even though women have become more and more equal in the workplace, in the home, behind closed doors, the roles are still very traditional. And what are we as women doing to help evolve that? So what I hear you saying is that you were taking on this very traditional role,
Right.
kind of as a precursor to getting married. You were already taking on this traditional role of all the things a wife should do, which is to cater basically to the needs of the husband.
Right.
And then I don't know, something happened. You woke up.
And it's funny because Aaron is not like that at all. Like, he's the one who does all the laundry in our house. He cleans our entire house. Like, that's very much him. When I was like, I'm going to quit my job and then do my own thing, he was like, all right, well, I can't stop you, so this will be fine. Like, so it's just interesting that once marriage was on the table, I did, like, now that you're saying that, I completely had this shift, and then I was miserable because that's not who I am. Like, I'm just, I'm not really like a, what's the word? A homemaker?
Domestic.
Yeah.
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 I get that. I'm not either.
Oh, man. I like to cook. I'll cook, but that's about it. I don't want to clean.
It is so true, though. Women tend to take on those domestic roles in a very traditional way, and it's almost like it's genetic. We just have this natural tendency, and we actually, at least in my case, I actually have to go through the mental process and say, no.
Right.
You know, I work full time, he works full time.
Yeah.
Why is it that I'm taking on these, there's always this, I mean, even now, we've been married 20 years. I still am constantly having to remind myself, wait a minute, this is not, I don't have to fall into that.
Yeah. No, it's just the strangest thing because, I mean, that's not how my parents operate either. My mom doesn't do anything around the house. Like, never has. And she, like, doesn't cook. She doesn't do anything. So it's just weird to me that once I was like, oh, we're getting married. I suddenly had this switch that I wasn't a fan of.
Well, and there's, at least in my mind, there's this idea that's impressed upon me as a woman about what it is to be the perfect woman. And that perfect woman looks a certain way, she acts a certain way, she's won certain awards, she has been certain amount of success in her work. Her husband, is happy. They have this dynamic sex life. They maybe have 2 kids and a dog, and the kids are 4.0,
right.
and the
yeah.
dog heals.
Right.
There's this image of what perfection for women is supposed to be, and women are constantly striving to achieve that. But behind closed doors, women are suffering. They're suffering with this perfectionist ideal.
Yeah. Man.
We got to break it free.
We do.
Open those doors.
Seriously.
What do you think, Evan? I know this is about conversations about women, but, it's important for the male sphere as well.
Well, I'm not married, and I'm not a woman.
You
But
are.
But you are around a lot of women.
Yes.
Yes.
In my mind, like, I've noticed that I only hang around women who are sort of like you two. We're like, there's no managing you.
We have
Like
no manager.
you are your own person. And so like I very much like spending time with men and with women who have their own purpose and they have their own drive, and like they're very grounded in themselves, and they love their life whether or not I am in it. And at that point, then I become a value add to their life and not like their only support system or the thing that makes their life complete. I don't want to be that person for anybody in my life, friends or family. And so for me, as I listen to this, it's kind of a foreign concept because I try to focus all of my energy on enhancing the lives of people who already have great lives and they have great purposes and great drives. And I think like what I'm really hearing out of both of you is women are getting married and then their purpose is changing to something that's not their purpose. And so then it's a one-sided household, or it's a one-sided like domestic relationship because there's this deep-rooted purpose that's no longer being fulfilled, and instead women are fulfilling this purpose that they think they need to be fulfilling and or they should be fulfilling, to go back to our favorite word. And at that point, work isn't fun and fun isn't fun. And so you're really suffering through the entirety of your life. That sounds horrible. That's the conversation that I think is really important, is how do you in a marriage allow both people to find their purpose and divide the things that you don't want to do evenly.
I remember so I went to college in the South, so it might be a little bit different there, but I remember talking to girls there, and they would say, "Oh, what are you majoring in?" And I would tell them, and then I'd say, "How about you?" And they'd say, "Oh, I'm here for my Mrs. degree." And for the longest, I kid you not, this is how dumb I was. For the longest, I was like, what department is that in? What does that stand for? Because that wasn't anything that would ever like cross my mind. But after spending 4 years around girls who were going to college to find a husband, they didn't care about anything else other than that, you subconsciously kind of start to feel like, wait, is that our purpose? Are we just supposed to like find a man and have a home and here we are? And like I would talk to girls who I was friends with and they would say, I just can't wait to get married and then my life will be like everything will come together. And I'm like, you're putting so much pressure on on a marriage that you are not even dating anyone right now. Like it's just, I don't know. So maybe there is just this thing that's going around in society where women feel like, I don't know, that's where their purpose is. I don't really.
And I think for men or women who like really just want to be married, like that's okay. Or if you don't want to have, like if your purpose isn't to go do some big radical thing or start your own business or do whatever like the three of us on this podcast are currently doing, like that's totally fine. But for people who either haven't found their purpose yet and now they're just assuming that their purpose is to be a homemaker, or for people who found their purpose and now they're putting it to the side for the sake of their marriage or of their family because they have to, or that's what society says, or that's what their genetics say, that's, I think, a larger discussion that can be had.
I also think too, regardless of like how amazing your marriage or your relationship is, if you don't have something else that's like yours that you're putting your energy towards, you're depending on another flawed human to like give you kind of satisfaction in a way, and they're never ever going to live up to whatever kind of reality you have in your head. And that's going back to how you were saying like there's women in marriages behind closed doors that are suffering and feeling awful, and I don't know, it's a very big conversation for sure.
It's a very big conversation, and it comes down to communication. And I have to say, in the defense of the male population, men, in my opinion, at least many men, well, I guess I could only speak for my husband, he didn't have that expectation of me. He really didn't. I fell into that role. I like volunteered for it.
Same.
And then at some point in our relationship, I was really angry about it. And there was a lot of blame.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, how did I find myself here doing all of the home chores, yet going to work and doing all the work, things needed at work. And when we finally had a conversation about it, good 10 years into our marriage, he's like, hey, you kind of chose that. I never had that expectation. I said, okay, well, just so you know, it's going to change.
Right.
And it did. So I think that women, maybe, I do think some of the way it becomes with women is self-imposed. And it's really about us being mindful and asking ourselves, where do we feel vital? What contributions in the household make us feel vital? Maybe even sitting down with your partner or your spouse and saying, okay, these are the things I'm good at. These are the things you're good at. Let's just divide and conquer and have a very heartfelt conversation about what that means.
No, for sure.
Most of us don't, myself included. Communication, I think, is the one place that gets muddied in a relationship.
Yeah.
There are a lot of assumptions.
Yep. Regardless of how great of a communicator you are, it's going to happen.
In everything.
Yeah.
Everything. I went to a talk last night by a woman in our community who's the head of public health. And she got her doctorate in sexual health, basically.
Okay.
And she was talking about sexual health for women over 50. And, when you distill it all down, it comes down to communication.
Mm-hmm.
Really talking to your partner and saying, this works and this doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it's the same in everything that everything in our life. When you are in a team or any kind of partnership, it really comes down to be willing to be vulnerable. I know we've talked about that before. And just talk about it.
And I think more communication is better too. Like in the context of like when small things happen, talking about it because the stakes are low. But one of the things that I found happens in my world is something small happens and I don't say anything because I can ignore it and like I'll forget about it in 20 minutes. But then as it keeps becoming a habit in whatever situation I'm in or I continue to find myself in, then the stakes get higher and higher and higher in my mind and it's harder and harder and harder to have a conversation. Because now 3 months have gone by and it's like, well, like this person or this action or this thought could have been like a non-issue 3 months ago, and now it's an hour-long conversation that I don't necessarily know if I have the energy for, or if I want to offend somebody, or if it's going to hurt their feelings, or if it's going to hurt my feelings. And so more communication, especially in the low-risk times. Hey, yes or no. Hey, I like this, I don't. What if you thought about it this way? Like, I'm still going to forget about it in 20 minutes. But now I'm going to forget about it, and whatever resurfaces is going to be exactly what I was hoping for, or exactly what's more productive or what's more valuable or more fruitful.
I mean, communication is essential. I think the challenge is that people don't always hear what you're saying. So that's just something to be aware of is, are they understanding your words the way you are intending them? Which, of course, takes more communication. Yeah, really. Hey, Ev, I also wanted to let you know that every time you mess with this...
You can hear it?
Yes.
Okay.
It becomes like a boom on the
Okay,
recording.
I won't do that. I just get fidgety. I need
I know you
something
do.
to play with.
We should have something you can play with. Let's see. We need one of those balls where you can...
I thought about getting into Rubik's Cubes, and then I realized that I was going to spend too much time with a Rubik's Cube.
Plus, you would hear it click.
Yeah.
In here. There's this really cool compound that I saw at the Atlanta gift show that's supposed to be a stress reliever, stress reducer. And they call it like Play-Doh for adults.
Nice.
So it's got this really wonderful texture to it. Oh. And you just mold it in your hands and just mold it in your hands and mold it in your hands. It's pretty cool.
I was at maybe a month or two ago, I was at a goal-setting workshop for the new year. And the person running it, Lisa Cini, who is the founder of Mosaic Design Studio, they do design for senior living facilities and senior health facilities. She had put Play-Doh and small games out for everybody there because she knew that everybody there was fidgety or was going to fidget as they were setting goals. Mm-hmm. And like including cutout cookie things so that you could like now make cutouts with the Play-Doh and you can make little action figures. It was so helpful. I don't know why all workplaces don't do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It occupies one part of your mind. Like doodling does the same thing.
Yeah.
So have you ever seen that TED Talk on doodling?
Mm-mm.
Oh, it's really good. It talks a lot about how the mind functions and how you absorb information and how, so oftentimes if you're doodling, people look at you and they think you're not paying attention, but the reality is you're actually you're more focused.
Right.
And how doodling is beneficial. Same thing with like little games and toys and anything that occupies those kinesthetic motor skills.
Yeah, I get nervous when I can't occupy it, which is why I move the microphone, because then that occupies my mind. Like I haven't moved in long enough that I think I'm gonna explode.
Oh my gosh! And I'm like, I could go to sleep back here.
And in the classroom, they've been doing different things to create focus with the kids that have attention deficit. And one of the things is those stability balls, those bouncy balls. And instead of having a regular chair that they sit in, a hard chair, they sit in those little bouncy balls. And then they bounce, and it helps them to get rid of a lot of that kind of anxious energy that they have so that they can focus on...
Actually, one of the things that I've been hearing about is that some kids who are diagnosed with attention deficit disorder are actually just kinesthetic learners.
Yeah, I can see that.
Mm-hmm. And so they're actually getting misprescribed Ritalin or Adderall, which is raising their dopamine level, and now they're having larger problems later in life. It's especially problematic for girls who are kinesthetic learners who are diagnosed with ADD or ADHD because they're getting... So what Adderall and Ritalin do is they raise the dopamine level in the brain. Dopamine's like the reward center. And that helps you focus, and it lowers your need for like kinesthetic activity or like your lack of attention. But it's very problematic for girls because girls are going on birth control pills at a younger age as well. And so what's happening is they leave college and now they don't need Adderall or Ritalin anymore because they're not sitting in that environment where they need to focus at a desk for a whole long time. And then they get married and now they decide they want to have kids, and so they go off the birth control pill and their hormones are all out of whack.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah. And so one of the things that it's like kind of starting with is maybe we need to address kinesthetic learners by doing things like stability balls, and you won't need to prescribe as many people Adderall or Ritalin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And also birth control. You know, I think people need to research that, know what that does to your body. Yeah. It's about making wise choices. Really looking at all the things in your environment and saying, okay, how is this going to affect my body? I was just writing a blog for the one that comes out in 2 weeks at Mind Body Align, and I was writing it about creating a sacred space. And one of the things that a lot of people do is they have scented candles all over their house, or they put different scents, the diffusers with scents and things. Well, we have scents on our body in all of our perfumes. We have scents in all of our hair products. All of those scents, or most of them, have these different chemicals which actually are hormone disruptors. And then we add scents to the air. So we're surrounded by all of these scents that are affecting our hormones in all these different ways. And then we wonder why, we have these dramatic mood swings, why we don't feel good, why we can't sleep. It's just, it's about making intentional choices about what you put on your body, what you put in your body, what surrounds you.
Right. For the first 5,000 years of human development, we didn't have all those scents. And now all of a sudden we think it's a brilliant idea to add 25 cents per day into our lives.
Oh my gosh, probably more than that.
It doesn't make sense to me.
No.
The scents don't make sense.
Those scents don't make sense.
Like, I'm all for diffusers, and like, especially if like it's going to add more moisture there, it'll help you sleep better when you're at home. And if you want to wear perfume, great, or you want to wear cologne, great. Like, that's up to you, but it's important to know that there's like a downside to it. You can't just put all this stuff on your body and in your environment and expect nothing else to happen.
And it doesn't just affect you individually. It also affects all the people around you. So I know I'm personally very sensitive to fragrance. And we have little notices all over the butterfly house that say, you know, please be aware of people's fragrance sensitivities and don't wear heavy perfumes. And still we have people that come in with heavy perfumes, and almost immediately I can smell it. And then, you know, there's always a toss-up. Am I going to get a migraine or am I not going to get a migraine from those fragrances? And, you know, so the choices you're making, you know, be wise about what you put on your own body, but also know that the choices you're making are affecting the people around you. Mothers who have children, you're affecting the hormones of your children. Through the fragrances that you're putting on your own body and their body. You know, what shampoo are they using? What lotions are they putting on their body? And the skin on your body is your largest organ. So you absorb all those chemicals through your skin.
Yep, directly into your bloodstream.
Yep.
Yeah.
But then again, it's no fun to stink.
Yeah, true.
So there's this conflict.
Yeah. That fine line.
Maybe in everything in moderation.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Just awareness, you know, of all all the products you're using. So that's our 5-minute chime.
Okay.
One thing I think I'd like us to just quickly talk about in closing is that our next podcast, we're going to have a guest, Cindy Biggs, and she's going to be talking us through StrengthsFinders 2.0. So we have each taken our StrengthsFinders test. And did we send those to Cindy yet? We'll send those to Cindy. And then we're just going to have a casual conversation. So it's not going to be a structured conversation, but a casual conversation about our individual strengths and maybe things that we can rejoice about those strengths and things that could become a problem if we overuse the strengths. And we had talked, I think, at the very first podcast about strengths. And I had said that one of my strengths was ideation or something. Ideation. Well, it turns out that my strength is not ideation. We'll talk about it next week. It's the other one. Anyway, of course, now I can't remember what it is. But it'll be interesting. Input is one for sure. So Jen, who works at Mind Body Align, she's the operations director. When she heard that podcast, she and Mary, who is the director of design, they went through and looked at my strengths. And they went, "Oh, she is not ideation." So immediately they said to me, "You're not ideation." So we decided to contact Cindy and have her come in and talk to us about what that means and how it can benefit us as individuals and as leaders. And maybe if anybody, maybe we can do a little post on our Instagram or our social media just saying if anybody has questions about StrengthsFinders, we can talk about it on the show.
Yeah.
Cool?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Anything else you guys would like to say in closing?
No.
Do not be afraid to be intense. That's what I would like to leave this conversation with.
Love it.
That's all I have.
Thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day.
Thanks again for joining us today. If you'd like to connect with us on social media, you can find Annamarie at Mindfully Annamarie. You can find myself at EmilyVDW, and you can find Evan at _EvanRyan. We'll talk to you next week.